بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. After praising Allah Ta'ala and sending salutations upon our beloved Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us beneficial knowledge, to grant us His nearness, His closeness and His pleasure. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. And we make dua for all of you that Allah Ta'ala bless you and your families. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. So today we will be continuing with the prayer of the traveler. We did a little bit last time. So we will be finishing off the rulings regarding the prayer of the traveler. There are a few rulings there. We will discuss them and we'll try to make certain things practical. Then we will discuss the prayer of a sick person. So the person who is ill, how there's this person who is not well, how do they pray? Can they pray? Can they miss out the certain integrals? Can they sit down and pray? Do they have to sit on the floor and pray? All of these kind of rulings. And if they can't sit even, can they lay down and pray? And what if they can't do that? All of these rulings will, inshallah, we will discuss. Then we will be talking about a person who is absolved of the obligation of praying and fasting. So what do they need to do? When are they absolved from the ruling of praying and the ruling of fasting? When do they have to make it up? And how do they make it up? And we will discuss these rulings. And then we will move on to the witr prayer. So we'll discuss the mandatory witr wajib prayer, which is the 3 rak'ats at the end of the night or after Isha, and we will discuss regarding that. Then we will do the emphasized sunnah prayers as well, those that consist of 2 rak'ats, those who consist of 4 rak'ats, then those which are not emphasized sunnahs, then the general recommended sunnahs, will go through them. And I think that will bring us to an end for our session of today. So this is what we will be doing today, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. So now moving on to continuation of this prayer of the traveler. We are doing it from where it says, if he is at a halt on the journey. So you are now stopped at a certain place and you are staying there for a while perhaps. So whilst in a state of rest, so now resting, then he should pray the emphasized sunnah prayers. He or she should pray the emphasized sunnah prayers, the sunnah mu'akkad, along with the obligatory and mandatory prayers, obviously. So you should pray the sunnahs. Generally people ask this question, that during travel, do I have to pray the sunnah prayers? Then yeah, like it says here, you should pray the sunnahs when you are at rest in a journey. Whilst you are actually traveling, whilst you are along your journey, then if you miss out the sunnah prayers, then that is fine. That is no problem with that. But there is no problem with that. But if a person is at their destination, but they are considered a traveler because they are staying there for less than 15 days, then a person should try their best to pray their sunnah prayers. So otherwise he may leave them, it says. So it's a choice. A person does have that choice, that ability to leave them and instead pray the obligatory and mandatory prayers. So you only pray the obligatory and mandatory prayers. Obligatory ones, the 4 ones, will be half, like we talked about. So once he reaches a city or village and intends to stay there for at least 15 full days, so you're going to stay there for 15 days or more, then he must complete the 4 rak'at obligatory prayers rather than shortening them. So and must fast if in Ramadan. So you have to fast as well. So you are no longer considered a traveler. So a person is no longer considered a traveler if they reach their destination, or they reach a place anywhere, they reach a place and they intend to stay there for 15 days or more. So if they intend to stay there for 15 days or more, they're no longer a traveler. though you would say that I'm just traveling by, I'm going to stay here for just over 2 weeks and I'm going to carry on journeying. But that place where you are now staying for 15 days or more is called a watan iqama. It will come watan al-iqama, meaning the place of temporary stay. So then it moves on. Otherwise, if he is still on the journey or is residing somewhere other than his normal place of residence, meaning other than your actual hometown, for less than 15 days. So there's two scenarios. One is that you are still journeying, or you are going to stay somewhere for less than 15 days. So if you're going to stay there for less than 15 days, then he does not complete the 4 rakat, no fast. Meaning he doesn't have to fast. You can fast if you want to, but the 4 rakat, like we prayed before, you must be prayed as 2. It must be shortened. So now the point is that this person is called a traveler. So the traveler, because they've traveled for 48 miles or more, and they are staying in the place that they are staying in, they're residing there for less than 15 days, then they will shorten their prayers and they are allowed not to fast as well. They will come into the ruling of a traveler. This place that they are staying in for less than 15 days is called Watan Safar, the place of a person journeying, traveling, meaning it's not a Watan al-Iqama, but it's just a place of temporary stay for less than 15 days. Rather, he must, carrying on in the book, rather he must still shorten those prayers and may still choose not to fast Ramadan. So that's what the person does. The journey of a traveler ends upon entering city limits of his normal place of residence, the Watan al-Asli. So Watan al-Asli is your normal place of residence where you reside for your, where you're going to stay for more or less the rest of your life. Your intention is to stay here. You don't intend to move from here. So that place is your hometown, in essence, what we will call, which is called Watanul Asli. So the 3 Watans, Watan is just meaning of the place where you're going to stay. So it's the Watan al Asli, which is the place of residence, the place of your normal actual residence, your hometown. And the ruling of that is, if you enter that Watan al Asli, that place of residence that you're going to stay in, then doesn't matter if you're going to stay there for a moment even, you will have to complete the prayer. You are not a traveler ever in your Watan al Asli. So that's that. So entering the city limits, and it's the same ruling as if it's in a bigger city like in London, then we apply the ruling of boroughs. So therefore, entering that borough, as soon as you enter the borough, you are no longer a traveler. You are now back home, even though you haven't actually reached your home. So the city limits, the town limits, the boundary, that's what we look at. Okay, so that's when you're returning back on journey. Moving on, if he, the traveler, prays behind a resident imam within the prayer time, his prayer is valid and he must pray the full 4 rakat. Afterwards, it is not. Sorry. So he must pray the full 4 rakats. And then it says afterwards it is not. I'll explain that later. So the first part is that if you're praying, if I'm joining a resident imam, I have to pray 2, but he's going to pray 4. So I will pray 4 with him, because as soon as I join the resident imam, then my fard also becomes 4, to the extent that if I join that resident imam and he's prayed already 2 rakats, so I will have to stand up and pray 2 more rakats. So I'll pray 2 rakats with him that he's going to pray 4 of. So he's already prayed 2, he's got 2 left, he's going to pray 2. I'm going to join him for that 2. Just because I've prayed 2 now doesn't mean I can do salam with him. No, I'm going to have to stand up and pray 2 more. Or if I've prayed 1 with him, I'm going to stand up and pray 3 more. If I've prayed 3 with him, I'm going to stand up and pray 1 more. So as soon as I join the imam who's resident, there's 4 rakats on him. By me joining him, I will also have to pray 4 rakats now. So that is the ruling of joining a resident imam. If you join this next ruling will come. Then just to explain that part afterwards, it is not, meaning that within the prayer time, if I am praying behind this imam who is praying within the prayer time, then my fard will become 4 by entering the prayer with him. But if I am praying after the prayer time, afterwards, meaning the time has already expired, now we are praying, for example, we are praying our dhuhr of today and we're praying it in Isha time. So when he is praying his dhuhr qada in Isha time, if I join him because I missed that also, so I'm praying behind him in congregation, the qada prayer, the missed prayer, which we can do, by the way. So if I'm doing that, I cannot pray, meaning 4 with his 4. My 4 won't become 4, because when the point is the traveler, when the traveler misses the prayer, the end time is considered. So what it means is that I will look at, when I missed my dhuhr, what was I at the end of dhuhr time? Was I a traveler? If I was a traveler at the end of dhuhr time, and the time finished, the time of dhuhr elapsed, whilst I was a traveler, then the fard on me will be 2 rakats, because dhuhr is 2 for a traveler. So when I make up the prayer, I will have to make up 2 rakats, not 4. So that's that. And if I am a traveler at the beginning of prayer time, and then I come home, and then that prayer becomes missed at home, and at the end of that prayer time, I am a resident, I am not a traveler, then the fard will be 4. So the fard will be determined in accordance to the end time. So that's what it means afterwards, meaning after the prayer time, that traveler cannot pray behind the resident imam. It's because the prayer will not be valid if you pray behind the resident imam who is praying 4 rakats. Okay, because you have to do a final sitting, and he will not do a final sitting, he will do a second sitting only, and which will not be a final sitting for you. So, and you can't add 2 more rakats with the first 2 rakats without doing sajda sahwa at the end, and you're not going to be able to do sajda sahwa because you're behind the imam. So anyway, you will not pray, a traveler who's missed the prayer in travel will not pray the missed prayer behind a resident imam who's missed that same prayer. You cannot do that. Moving on, in the opposite scenario, so now the opposite case where the traveler is becoming the imam now and the resident is the follower. So the prayer of the resident follower would be valid in both cases, with the condition, however, that the resident does not complete the 4 rakats with his imam. The traveler, if the imam incorrectly performs 4 rakats instead of 2, if he completes it with him, his resident follower's obligatory prayer is rendered invalid and counts as a voluntary prayer instead. So what this means is a bit of a loaded one. Let me just break it up for you to make up the scenario here now. Yeah. So firstly, understand the ruling of the traveler imam who's going to pray 2 rakats. He's going to lead people who are going to pray 4 rakats. He can do that. It's no problem. He will pray 2 rakats. He will end the prayer at 2 rakats, do salam, and he will tell the people, I am musafir, I am a traveler, you continue your prayer. Or he doesn't even have to. They will realize that they've only prayed 2, so they will get up and they will pray 2 more rakats. So they will make up them 2 more rakats. When making up them 2 rakats, they just have to stand there for a while. They don't have to do qira'ah, because remember, they were in essence behind the imam. The imam's done the qira'ah. So in the 3rd and 4th rakat of theirs, they can stand there for a while and go into ruku and finish the salat off like normal. They don't have to do qira'ah. But if they want to, it's fine. You can still read Surah Al-Fatiha in your 3rd and 4th rakat, so it's fine. So that's the ruling of the resident praying behind the traveler and how they will make up that prayer that they have missed. Now, if, in the scenario it mentions here, if the traveler imam, he was meant to pray 2, but he prayed 4. So if he prays 4, then the resident followers, their prayer of 4 rakats dhuhr will not be valid. The reason being is that the imam who's a traveler, his first 2 rakats are fard, And the third and fourth rakat, if you remember we prayed, the third and fourth rakat are actually nafil. They are optional. They just added on, tagged along to the two fard. The two is the fard. The two extra, the third and fourth, are not fard. Now you can't pray your fard because you're a resident follower. You're praying four fard. You can't pray your fard of third and fourth rakat behind somebody who's praying nafil, because he's of a lower rank in comparison to you of a higher rank, and you can't have that. You can't pray behind the imam who's praying nafil as a third and fourth rakat, and you are praying fard and as a third and fourth rakat. So that's not allowed. Then that's what he's talking about, that the obligatory prayer will be rendered invalid and counts as a voluntary prayer instead. So all four rakats will become, for the follower, it will become optional, will become a voluntary prayer, nafil prayer. They're going to have to repeat their fard prayer now. Now, moving on. So moving on, a missed 4 rak'ah prayer on a journey is made up as 2 rak'ahs, even if one is no longer a traveler when making it up. So when you are at home and you're making up a prayer that you missed during your travel, like I explained, you have to consider the end time. So you missed it on journey, which was a 4 rakat prayer. That 4 rakat prayer you missed in journey will become 2 rakats, qada. So you have to make up for 2 rakats, even though you're praying at home and you're praying whilst you are not a traveler. And likewise the other way around, yeah. Likewise, a missed 4 rakat prayer whilst residing. So you are a resident and you missed 4 rakat prayer is made up as 4 rakats. So you have to make up as 4 rakats, even if one is on a journey when making it up. So you were a traveler when you're making it up. You can't pray 2, you have to pray 4, because when you missed it, the end time was what was considered. And that's what he says next. The end of the prayer time is what is considered for this and other legal rulings. A traveler in a permissible journey and one in a journey of disobedience are equivalent with regard to legal ruling of the journey itself, such as shortening the prayer and the option of not fasting. Now obviously for us the Hanafis, for us it doesn't make a difference whether the journey is a permissible journey or journey of disobedience, which we call safar al-ta'ah or safar of ma'siyah. So safar of ta'ah is like Hajj journey or any other type of journey which is obviously seeking of knowledge, journey of obedience in this way. And a journey of disobedience, obviously a person is journeying to do some sin or sinful act, then still the rulings of journey still apply. They will still get the shortening of prayer and everything else. The reason he mentions this is because some other schools do not agree with this. They don't allow the dispensation if a person is not journeying for obedience and for something which is permissible. So that is the ruling that he's mentioned over here. That brings us to a close regarding the rulings of travel. I don't think there's anything left. Moving forward, so prayer of the sick person. If it is difficult or impossible for a sick person to stand in the prayer, he may or she may pray the obligatory fard prayer sitting. So you're allowed to pray the obligatory prayer sitting down. I've already explained this, touched on this, yet still bowing, ruku, by bending his or her head and back. So you move the head and back, I explained this before, and prostrating, doing sujood. So you again normally on the ground. So you do normal sujood on the ground and you move your head and your back to do ruku properly. You won't be able to stand up because you can't stand up. That's the idea. So you can't stand up and do it, but your hands go onto your knees and you bend as much as you can. And then you come up, that's your ruku. And then you go down into sujood fully onto the ground. And that's the best way, the optimal way of praying. That's provided a person is able to do sujood and a person is able to do ruku. Now, if normal prostration is also impossible or very difficult, a person cannot do it, a person cannot prostrate, then he prays by head movements, by bending his neck for each. You have to move your head. You have to move your head and try to move your back if you can, making his head motion for prostration, sujood, lower than that of the bowing, the ruku. So what you do is you work out how far you can go down. So if a person can go this much down, that's the most that they can go. That will be their sujood. And then less than that, I normally say about halfway, about that much is going to be their ruku. And then their sitting up is this much. So they're sitting up, ruku is this much halfway, and sujood is this much. That's the most they can go. They can't go beyond that. So that's how you work it out. Ruku, you do the sujood first, and you do halfway will be a ruku, or less than that. Anything less than that can be a ruku. They both shouldn't be the same. That's the idea. If sitting is impossible, now a person cannot sit even. So they can't sit on a chair, they can't sit on a floor, they just can't do it. They have to lay down, or very difficult again. He may pray with head movement while laying down. So you lay down either on his back, so you lay down on your back and you're facing your feet towards the Qibla. So if the Qibla is this way, your feet are facing towards the Qibla, you're laying flat. Okay? So either on his back or on his side, or you face the Qibla. So you turn, rather than facing this way, your feet this way, you're going to now turn this way, lay across like this, and you're going to now lay on your side, on your right, and you're facing towards the Qibla. So you're laying, your body is facing towards the Qibla now, rather than your feet facing towards the Qibla. So that's what he says, with his face directed towards the Qibla. So that's the two ways that a person can pray whilst laying down. And then you would move your head. Again, the same thing, you'd move as much as you can. That would be your sujood, and less than that would be your ruku. If he is unable to perform head movements, that you can't move your head, you're paralyzed completely from neck, all of this is paralyzed, you just cannot move any of this, then he does not pray. Then there is no movement, there's no prayer, because you can't move your head. There is no movement at all that you can do like this. Then there is no prayer. And if this state lasts for over a full day and night, then according to most scholars, he becomes absolved, or she becomes absolved of those obligatory prayers, meaning he does not have to make up for them. So if it's more than one full day and night's prayer, meaning more than 5 prayers, you've now missed 6 prayers like this. So as soon as you miss the 6th prayer, then this is what the ruling is mentioned over here. It is absolved now. You do not have to make up for those prayers. Other scholars, however, maintain that he must make up for them upon recovery. So if you recover, or if he or she recovers from that illness, then they will make up for them prayers afterwards upon recovery. And that is the ruling that we generally go for, that a person precautionary should make up for those prayers. Now, but if a person obviously does not recover and dies, then that other dispensation, leniency, could be used, that they just never had the chance to ever pray those prayers. So that can be used. Now, one thing left here, which he kind of explained, that if a person is unable to do head movements, then you do not pray. What it means that if a person is able to move the eyebrows or the eyelashes, they're able to blink, then a person can't pray like that. So you can't say, that is my, like you can see my movement of my eyebrows, this is my sujood, and that is my ruku, and that is my standing, like moving of eyebrows, and pray in that way. That is not an accepted prayer. Prayer cannot be done in that way. Likewise, you can't pray thinking in your head. So it's laying there, you're thinking in your head that I'm now doing ruku, now I'm doing sujood, and you're saying Allahu Akbar and everything. That won't count. You have to have some movement. So therefore, the neck needs to be moved, even if it this much that I can move only. I can only move slightly. That's my sujood. This much will be my ruku. Less movement than that, and straight up will be my standing position. So you have to do some movement is the key thing here. If a person is unable to move at all, then this ruling of the prayer will apply, whether it's 6 prayers or less. If one loses consciousness or sanity for a duration of 5 obligatory fard prayers or less, it was less than 5, it was 5 or less, he must make them up upon recovery. If longer, meaning if the 6th one becomes missed, then he doesn't have to make them up. So losing consciousness, becoming unconscious, going to a coma maybe, or perhaps losing one's sanity a person becomes insane, then a person does not need to make up for them prayers if it's 6 prayers missed or more than that. Otherwise, it has to be in a row, 6 prayers in a row, meaning, yes? So they're unconscious for that duration of time. Otherwise, they will have to make it up. Moving on. Being absolved of the obligation of praying or fasting. If a sick person who was unable to perform obligatory fasts and obligatory prayers by head movements dies, so they die in this state. If a traveler dies on his journey in which he missed fasts, so they went on a journey, they missed fasts because they were allowed to miss those fasts. In either case, having died before attaining onto alternative days, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ, it says in the Quran, meaning you did not get an opportunity to make up for those prayers that you missed or for the fast that you missed. You didn't get an opportunity in your health or in your residency. You didn't get that chance. That it is not necessary for either one of them to have left a bequest in his will for expiatory payment, meaning expiation, the payment of expiation, which is a fidya known, on behalf of those missed prayers or fasts. So if a person passed away without having the opportunity to make up for it, then there is no need to make a will to pay expiation on your behalf. Now, the opposite rule obviously applies, that if a person did get this amount of time, where a person, let's say they were traveling for 10 days, they missed 10 days worth of fasts. Now they came back home after Ramadan and they have had the chance to fast for example, 7 days. They didn't fast those 7 days though. They said, I'll fast later on. But they didn't fast for 7 days. After 7 days, they passed away. Remember, they missed 10 days. So what will happen now? They will have to have made a will to pay these expiatory payments on their behalf for the 7 days. The 7 days must be paid. They have to have bequested, look, I didn't fast for 7 days. I totally didn't fast for 10 days, but 7 days I have to make up for, but I didn't make up for them. So please pay on my behalf the payments which are going to come regarding how much that is next. So these payments must be made. The 3 days, day 8, 9, and 10, they didn't get an opportunity to fast. They didn't have that amount of time. So for that is going to be excused. But obviously for the prayers, a person has enough time in those 7 days to have made up for it if they missed any prayers. So they should have done they should have made up for it, unless they've that's that. And then if a person did, just to explain that ruling fully, but if a person did not will it, they did not make a bequest, then they will be sinful. They will be sinful for not making a bequest, because it's necessary to make a bequest and to make it part of the will to pay these payments on their behalf. It's hoped that if the heirs, they pay on the behalf of the deceased, then the sin will be removed. But the payments must be made. Now, how much payment is made? So he's discussing that if the two, i.e. the sick person recovering or the traveler residing for at least 15 days, were able to pray or fast, they were able to do that, yet did not perform those makeups. They didn't perform those makeup prayers, or they did not make up for the fasts before death. Then the two must leave, meaning both of these people must leave a bequest in the will for the expiatory payments or payment of a half a sa'. A half a sa' is 2.2 kilograms of wheat, or a full sa', which is 4.4 kilograms of wheat or barley. Sorry, not wheat, barley. 4.4 kilograms of barley. So either 2.2 kilograms of wheat or a full sa', which is the 4.4 kilograms of barley, or its equivalent in money, in cash. So this must be made for each missed obligatory prayer, fard prayer, even witr, and for each missed day of fasting. So every day, one day is worth this much amount. The amount you'll notice is the same as the sadaqatul fitr amount. So it's easy just to work out what the sadaqatul fitr is in your locality, and per day will be the equivalent of sadaqatul fitr per day missed of fasting, and per salat, including witr, per salat will be the sadaqatul fitr amount as well. So whatever the sadaqatul fitr amount is in your localities, that much per salat. So you missed 5 salats plus the witr 6 salats, then that will become so when we're talking about the 6 salats, when we said earlier, a person misses the 6th prayer, that's not witr, yeah, not including witr. It has to be 6th fard prayers. So you missed more than 1 day's worth of prayers. But when you're making up for them, you have to make up for the witr too. So this is the ruling here. This money is to be taken out from a third of his or her estate before division of inheritance. So if they make a bequest, then from 1/3 of the estate after paying for the burial costs and everything else that may be taken out from there, and after paying off any debts that the person has left behind, then the bequest will be fulfilled. And that money that's left over after paying the first 2 things I said, the burial costs, shrouding costs, etc., as well as the cost of the debts that they need to be repaid. Debts, we're talking about debts to any fellow humans, that a person took out a loan from somebody, took a loan, and they need to pay them back. So any debts like this need paying, or any other debts that you bought something from somebody, you didn't pay them yet, things like this. So any debts that need to be paid like this must be paid. So anything like that, but not zakat and not debts like this, because that's not really a debt, that's with Allah. So debts with human beings, they need to be paid. So anything left, all the estate that's left after that, 1/3 of it will be used to pay off any of these missed prayers or missed fasts. That's only if the person made a bequest. If they did not make a bequest, then this money will not be used for this purpose. The money that the estate of the deceased will not be used for this purpose. Now, moving on, if an heir of his or another third party voluntarily pays on his behalf, or pays on behalf of the deceased from their own pocket, from their own money, then it is valid for the amount incumbent upon him. Then it's fine, it's no problem, you can pay on behalf of somebody else. If the portion, i.e. a third of the deceased estate, is not sufficient for that, meaning they had bequest that pay these many salats that I missed and this many fasts that I missed, they made that bequest, but when we calculated it, it was way more than 1/3. So only 1/3 will be used. So it says, is not sufficient for that. Then he, meaning the executor of the will, may pay a indigent person, a faqir, meaning somebody who's faqir now this is just a stratagem that is used to be able to absolve the person of their responsibility, the deceased of their responsibility. So you get one poor person, you pay them, the executor will pay them that 1 salat worth, or will pay them that 1 fast worth of the fidya payment, with the intention of expiation and its payment. So do that, pay him off, and then ask the poor person to gift it back to you, right? So the poor person will then gift it back to you. Now you've got money again, and you use that same money to give to that same poor person. Okay, here you go for the 2nd day's worth of fasting, and then you do the same thing again, and then take it back. Take back what he paid. As a result, the deceased will become absolved of that equivalent amount, equivalent amount of prayers or fasts. So the amount of times you do that, it's a bit of a play to do this. That's why you only ever do this in this particular circumstance where you really need it to. It's a stratagem, and you hope that because this is a need and we have no other money to resort to, that Allah will absolve the deceased from this, because there's nothing else you can do. What else will you do really? If you can find somebody else to pay on behalf of the deceased, that's the ideal thing, which you already mentioned above. Moving on, it is valid to pay the expiatory payment fidya for multiple prayers or fasts, all to one indigent person, meaning a faqir, a poor person. So you find one poor person, you give all of the multiple expiatory payments that you needed to do to one poor person, it's all fine, as opposed to the expiation for breaking an oath, which is the kafara of yameen, kafaratul yameen, breaking an oath or the like. So there you have to find where it says you have to do 60 poor people, or you have to feed the 10 poor people, ashrati masakin in the kafara of yameen, or in the kafara of dhihar, or the kafara, the expiation of breaking a Ramadan fast. So in those circumstances, a person has to have paid separate, different poor people. But here, you are you are allowed to pay one poor person all of those payments, and it will be fine. That would be allowed. Now, moving on in the kitab, one may not perform ritual prayer, meaning the salat, on behalf of another, as it will not count for him, and it will not reduce the amount of expiatory payment for his missed prayers. So you can't pray on behalf of somebody else, though you can pay on behalf of somebody the expiatory payments, but you can't just decide that, okay, they had this many prayers, I'm just going to make up for them. That's not allowed. The expiatory payment is to be paid only to the indigent, the fuqara, the poor people, whilst it is hoped that Allah will overlook the sins of his deceased servant by his limitless grace. So this payment that we are saying to give, this is only, we say, is only proven from where the Quran mentions to pay expiatory payments for not having fasted. So this exists, this ruling of paying expiatory payments on behalf of the fasts, it does exist in the Quran. But for the prayer having been missed, there's no proof for it besides taking this concept from the Quran, where a fard, meaning fasting, was missed and expiation was being able to be performed because there was no other way of doing this. There was no other way of, the person has passed away, they're unable to fast. So in the same way here, if a person has passed away unable to pray that salat anymore, what else are we going to do? There's nothing we can do besides pay on their behalf this expiatory payment and hope that Allah will forgive this person. And that's why he's saying what he's saying over here. Then we move on to the witr prayer. So the witr prayer is mandatory wajib. So it's the wajib prayer for, according to us Hanafis. It consists of 3 rak'ats prayed together with one set of salams. So it's only one set of salams at the end of the third rak'at. You do not do salam at the end of the second rak'at, meaning. So in the third rak'at, before bowing, before going into the ruku, one recites the qunut. I've already explained this before. This is performed throughout the year, because obviously according to the Shafi'i school, they only perform it in Ramadan on certain nights. So in our school, we perform it throughout the year, and that's why he's saying this. The description of the qunut was already mentioned. That's already been described above, and I've already been over it. A group can pray the witr in congregation only in Ramadan. So according to our school, only in Ramadan will we do congregation of witr prayer, wherein there is more reward for one to pray it in a congregation than to do so alone, even if at the end of the night. Meaning normally there is encouragement to pray the witr at the end of the night, after the tahajjud prayer. Pray the witr last, just before the fajr prayer, or the last thing before one goes to sleep. So that's the last thing a person should pray, the witr prayer. That's the encouragement. But in Taraweeh, after a person has done the Taraweeh prayer with the congregation, they're going to pray the witr with congregation. That is more preferred, even if they're going to pray tahajjud later on. Unless later on they're going to pray with congregation too. So praying with congregation is more preferred, it's saying over here, in the month of Ramadan. If one joins the congregation of the Imam in the third rak'ah, So you missed 2 rakats and you joined in the third rakat. Even if in the bowing position, meaning in the ruku of that third rakat, after the kunut was performed. So the kunut was already performed, you missed the kunut, you joined the imam in ruku. Now if you joined the imam in ruku position, you have caught that rakat, you have actually got that rakat. So that's why it's describing this particular scenario. So it says he does not recite the kunut in that which he makes up. So when you make up 2 rakats later on, you're going to make up one and you're going to make up the second, you're going to make up the first and second rakat of yours, of missed rakat, since by catching the third rakat, it is as if he recited it. So it's as if you've already recited the kunut. Even though you actually missed it, the imam recited it, but because you caught the third rakat, imam recited it for you, you've already done it. So that's what that counts as. Moving on, the emphasized sunnah prayers now. So those consisting of 2 rakats. So the emphasized sunnah prayers are, we've got before Fajr, which is the most emphasized sunnah prayers. The 2 rakats before Fajr. A person should not miss these 2 rakats because there's so much encouragement on this. The hadith mentions that do not miss these 2 rakats even if the horses trample you. Meaning you are fearful that the horses would trample you, still try not to miss this 2 rakats. So Prophet ﷺ would pray this, encourage a lot on these 2 rakats. These are by far the most important sunnah prayers. So a person should make sure that they don't miss these 2 prayers. There's 2 rakats, the Fajr 2 rakats, sunnah. After Dhuhr, so after Dhuhr we also have 2 rakat of a unit of 2 rakats sunnah. Then after Maghrib, so after Maghrib there's also 2 rakats sunnah, which is muakkad, and after Isha there are also 2 rakats sunnah, which are muakkad. Then he says those consisting of 4 rakats, which is before Dhuhr. So that's the second most emphasized sunnahs of the day. So you got the Fajr sunnahs, the 2 sunnahs of Fajr before the Fajr, and the 4 sunnahs before Dhuhr prayer. These are also very emphasized. People are very neglectful of these 4 rakats. You should try your best never to miss these. Okay, try not to miss these 4 rakats, sunnahs. Very emphasized. A lot of reward mentioned for them too. Then before the Friday prayer and after the Friday prayer. So you got 4 before the Friday prayer, 4 after the Friday prayer. These are all sunnah, muakkads, emphasized sunnahs. All of these 4 rakat prayers are to be prayed with one set of salams. So you pray only one set of salams, you pray 4 in one go. Thus, if one separates them into 2 prayers of 2 rakats each, so you do 2 and do salam, and then 2 and then do salam. If you do that, then he has not performed the sunnah, rather they are merely voluntary prayers. So we will consider them to be voluntary, they're not going to be the sunnah. The recommended prayers, non-emphasized sunnahs, which is the mustahabbat, are the following, which is the 4 rakats before Asr, 4 rakats before Isha, 4 rakats after Isha. So the 4, these are 2 and 2. And then 6 rakats after Maghrib. So 6 rakats are 2, 2, 2 with 3 sets of salam. So you got salam after 2, salam after 2, salam after 2. These are 6 rakats after Maghrib, which is generally called awabin by people. So these are the prayers which are recommended. The following are general, non-emphasized sunnahs. So 2 rakats of greeting the mosque, which is called tahiyyatul masjid, before sitting down. So when you enter the masjid, in any time in which the prayer is not disliked. So if you enter the masjid in a time where the prayer is not disliked, so that's the Fajr time, if you remember, and the Asr time after having prayed your Fard Asr. These 2 times are disliked, and then the other 3 times, prohibited times, the sunrise, the midday, and sunset. These are 5 times that were mentioned previously, if you remember them. So if it's not any of these 5 times, any other time of the day or night, a person enters the masjid, you should try to pray 2 rakats of tahiyyatul masjid, meaning greeting of the mosque. So you are saying greeting to the masjid, and there's rewards, a lot of rewards mentioned for this Tahiyatul Masjid. There's quite a bit of emphasis as well on this Tahiyatul Masjid, and you will see that in certain cultures, because culturally they emphasize them, alhamdulillah, there are many people who pray these, but some people, they neglect these 2 rakats, don't pray and don't emphasize them, don't even talk about them, to the extent that the younger children don't even know about them. So we should be careful of this, making sure that Tahiyatul Masjid is also prayed. 2 rakats, next one is 2 rakats after performing wudu, before the limbs dry. So this is called Tahiyatul Wudu. So just like you have Tahiyatul Masjid, you're greeting the masjid, you're greeting that wudu, that has the state of wudu that has now come onto you. So praying these 2 rakats after having done wudu is also recommended. Next one is 4 to 12 rakats of late morning, the duha prayers. So late morning, I would say mid-morning, after mid-morning, a person will pray these 4 up to 12 rakats. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 up to 12. Next one is any voluntary nafil prayers. Any nafil prayers you can pray. Then the prayer of making a decision, which is Salatul Istikhara. So you're making a decision, so you're asking Allah to put khair and barakat and blessings in your decision that you're going to make. So you're going to take up a job, for example, you're praying 2 rakats to Allah, Allah put the khair in it. There's actually a dua for istikhara too, which you can search up. The prayer of need, the Salatul Haja. So a person has a need for whatever the need may be, pray 2 rakats and ask Allah for that need to be fulfilled. Then the next one is the night prayer before the 2 days of Eid. So before the two Eid nights, on the 2 Eid nights before the day of Eid, that night praying at night time is again recommended. The night prayer during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, I'm sure everyone knows the emphasis of that. And the night prayer during the first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah. So Dhul Hijjah, praying during the night time in the first 10 nights is also something recommended. And then the night prayer of mid-Sha'ban, the 15th of Sha'ban. So again, this is a night which our pious predecessors would have stayed awake all night and would have worshipped Allah Ta'ala, carried on praying the prayers during these times. So this is something a person should be punctual of. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah, we've come to a close on our session today. So what did we do today? We went through the final rulings of the traveler. So talked about praying the sunnahs whilst the person is traveling. Try your best to pray them and don't miss them. If a person is obviously actually in journey, then you won't pray them, because then especially if you're with people, you will inconvenience them. They will have to stop longer because of you having to pray your sunnahs, everything else. Just leave the sunnahs when you're actually traveling, if you're traveling with other people especially. But if you're at rest, best to pray them. Some people have also mentioned that if you have qada prayers left, then you could make up the qada prayers in the place of the sunnahs instead. So replace the sunnahs with the qada prayers. So you could do that whilst you're at rest in your journey as well, because the sunnah prayers are not as emphasized as they were when you were a resident, and that's undoubtedly the case. Then we went through a few more rulings of a traveler. When do you no longer become a traveler? We talked about this. We talked about 3 watans, if you remember, the places of residence. One is Watan al-Asli, which is your residence, and as soon as you enter, you are no longer a traveler, even if it be for a moment. Then the other is Watan al-Iqama. Watan al-Iqama is established if you are going to stay in one place for more than 15 days or more. So if you're going to stay for more than 14 days, which is 15 days or more, then this place of yours will be considered a Watan al-Iqama. You will complete the prayer there. And then you've got a watan of Safar, which is where you're going to stay for less than 15 days. So there you would shorten prayers and you do not have to fast as well. So these were some of the rulings we did regarding the traveler. And then we went on to the prayer of the sick person, the person who's ill. If they're unable to stand, they can sit and pray. If they're unable to sit and pray, they can, by making sure that they can, if they're able to do sujood and ruku, they will do sujood and ruku properly. But if they're unable to do sujood and ruku properly, then they will gesture the sujood and ruku. If they're unable to do this too, they can lay down and pray, moving their head and gesturing the prayer in that way. If they're unable to do that, then they will not pray, because the minimum is to move the head at least. Then we went through a person who's absolved of prayers. Then what do they need to do? They need to obviously bequest that or bequeath that payments be made from their estate for the amount of prayers that they've missed. Likewise, fasts. Any fasts that are missed, they need to be made up, or if they're not made up for, then there has to be a fidya payment, payments that are made, and they need to bequeath this. Otherwise, if they do not bequest this, then they will be sinful. And the amount of sadaqatul fitr, the amount that is going to be paid is the amount of sadaqatul fitr. So I'm saying the amount of sadaqatul fitr because there are various calculations that people have done. There's difference of opinions regarding the weight, whether it's 2.2, whether it's 1.85, 1.875, whether it's 2.32, different amounts that people have mentioned for half a sa of the wheat. Nevertheless, if you follow this, the amount that sadaqatul fitr is given by, then that's fine. Then we did a few rulings of this expiation. We went through that. Then we went through the witr prayer, how to pray that. We've done this multiple times. Then we went through the emphasized sunnah prayers, those that are 2, those that are 4, those that are not so emphasized, and those that are just recommended prayers to have prayed. We went through all of that today.